Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Rama Rama Hare Hare Vishnupada Paramahansa Prabhu Acharya Prabhu ki āṇḍakośo ki all glories to the Assembly devotees Hare Krishna, all glories to the Assembly devotees Hare Krishna, all glories to the Assembly devotees Hare Krishna, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Vishnupada Krishna Prasthāpada Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namine. Okay, can I get that Bhagavatam? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, reading from Canto 3, Chapter 11, text number 39. I'm going to finish this chapter so that we can go on to the creation of Kumars and others. Okay. Kālo ayaṁ paramāṇv-ādir dvi-parārdhānta īśvaraḥ na naiveśituṁ prabhu bhūmna īśvaraḥ dhāma-māninām kālo prabhur bhūmna īśvaro dhāma-māninām kālo paramāṇv-ādir īśvaro dhāma-māninām kālo paramāṇv-ādir dvi-parārdhānta īśvaraḥ naiveśituṁ prabhur bhūmna īśvaro dhāma-māninām. Okay, please repeat. naiveśituṁ prabhu bhūmna īśvaro dhāma-māninām. Okay, Mataji's. Bhūmna kālo ayaṁ dvi-parārdhānta īśvaraḥ naiveśituṁ prabhur bhūmna īśvaro dhāma-māninām kālo, the eternal time, ayaṁ, this, paramāṇv-ādir, ādihi, beginning from, dvi-parārdhānta, two superdivisions of time, āṇḍakośo, to the end, īśvaraḥ, controller, never, eva, certainly, īśvaraḥ, to control, prabhu, capable, bhūmna, of the supreme, īśvaraḥ, controller, dhāma-māninām, of those who are body conscious. Translation and following purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Eternal time is certainly the controller of different dimensions, from that of the atom up to the superdivisions of the durations of Brahma's life. But nevertheless, it is controlled by the Supreme. Time can control only those who are body conscious, even up to the Satyaloka or the higher planets of the universe. Vikāraiḥ sahito yuktair viśeṣādibhir āvṛtaḥ āṇḍakośo bahir ayaṁ pañcāśat-koṭi-vistṛtaḥ. This phenomena, material world, is expanded to a diameter of 4 billion miles as a combination of 8 material elements transformed into 16 further categories within and without as follows. Purport: as explained before, the entire material world is a display of 16 diversities and 8 material elements. The analytical studies of the material world are the subject matter of Sankhya philosophy. The first 16 diversities are the 11 senses and 5 sense objects, and the 8th element are the gross and subtle matter, namely earth, water, air, fire, sky, mind, intelligence, and ego. All these combined together are distributed throughout the entire universe, which extends diametrically to the 4 billion miles. Besides this universe of our experience, there are innumerable other universes, some of them are bigger than the present one, and all of them are clustered together under similar material elements as described below. Dashottaraadhikair yatra pravishta paramāṇv-ādir lakshatentar gataschanye kotisho hi āṇḍakośo. The layers of elements covering the universe are each 10 times thicker than the one before, and all the universe clustered together appear like atoms in a huge combination. Purport: the coverings of the universe are also constituted of the elements of earth, water, fire, air, ether, each in 10 times thicker than the one before. The first covering of the universe is earth, and then it is 10 times thicker than the universe itself. If the universe is 4 billion miles in size, then the size of the earthly covering of the universe is 4 billion times 10. The covering of water is 10 times greater than the earthly covering. The covering of fire is 10 times greater than the watery covering. The covering of air is 10 times greater than that of the fire. The covering of ether is 10 times greater still than that of air, and so on. The universe within the coverings of matter appears to be just like an atom in comparison to the covering, and the number of universes is unknown even to those who can estimate the coverings of the universe. Tadahur aksharam brahma sarva karana karanam vishno dhāma param sākṣāt puruṣasya mahatmanah. The personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, is therefore said to be the original cause of all causes. Thus the spiritual abode of Vishnu is eternal without a doubt, and it is also the abode of Mahavishnu, the origin of all manifestations. Purport: Lord Mahavishnu, who is residing in Yoga Nidra on the causal ocean and creating innumerable universes by his breathing processes, only temporarily appears in the Mahatattva for the temporary manifestations of material worlds. He is the plenary portions of Lord Sri Krishna, and thus, although he is not different from Lord Krishna, his former appearance in the material world as an incarnation is temporary. The original form of the personality of God is actually the Swarupa, or real form, and he eternally resides in Vaikuntha world, Vishnaloka. The word Mahatmanaha is used here indicating Mahavishnu, and in his real manifestation is Lord Krishna, who is called Parama. And as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, īśvara paramah Krishna Satchid Ananda Vigraha Anādir Govindha Sarva Karana Karanam. The Supreme Lord is Krishna, the original personality of God, known as Govinda. His form is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and is the original cause of all causes. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Calculations of Time from the Atom. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Chalakaya Chakshuranitamena Tasmai Shugrivena Shri Chaitanya Manavishtam Stapitamini Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Tadi Swapadantikam Vandeham Shugrashita Patakamalam Shugrun Vishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhutam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lita Shri Chakana Vitamsha E Krishna Karunasini Dinabandha Jagatpati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Shri Vrishavanishta Devi Brahmā Hiri Vanchakalpadra Vishya Kripasan Deviyavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavbhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtabhatal Srimati Bhakti Vikasa Swami Tirumani Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtabhatal Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tirumani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesasyanyavadi Pashate Deshtani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jnananandam Mayam Devam Nirmaspatikakritimadharam Sarva Vidyanam Haigrivam Upasmahe Guru Vaishnava Bhagavan Tinir Smarana Hai Vigna Vinashana Naya Shahai Nijavanchita Puran. Okay. Okay, so finishing off this chapter, it's quite an intense chapter, you could say. The topics discussed with here within requires great level of scientific research, as Srila Prabhupada wanted. Many of his disciples do, and a great personality like Sadaputa Prabhu have done that. You can go through his channel. There is a whole series of lectures presented in a very scientific way regarding the creation of the universe, regarding time, regarding all of these different subject matters that are being discussed throughout this chapter here. Essence being that, of course, here the questions to Vidura, Maitreya is bringing it back. Questions by Vidura, Maitreya is bringing it back ultimately to the Supreme Personality of God. He is discussing so many of these intricacies of time and time calculation and all of these different subjects. But ultimately the conclusion is, well, Krishna, he is controller of all. He is the source of all of these things. Not to miss that point. So, very important, these kind of last 3-4 verses summarize, in one sense, what the whole chapter is being talked about. Specifically mentioning here, eternal time is certainly the control of different dimensions. From that of the atom up to the superdivisions of the duration of Brahma's life. But nonetheless, it is controlled by the Supreme. Time can control only those who are bodily conscious, even after the Satyaloka, or the higher planets of the universe. Time itself, we have been discussing in many different aspects of time, and Mukundadatta Prabhu and Bhakti Vikas Maharaj have given nice lectures. Specifically, Mukundadatta Prabhu gave a lecture when he was here, and then there's a 12-series lecture just on time by Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, which is mind-bending. I think I remember listening through that and I was like, what is going on at one point? Because many philosophers say many different things about time. And it's interesting because time itself, as we discussed, is the impersonal form of the Lord, or the unmanifested form of the Lord. But it is calculable. You can calculate it in one sense by the different movements of different objects, but at the same time, it's uncapturable. What is time? Well, sometimes scientists define time as an instantaneous moment. But then what is that? What is that instant? How do you capture that instant? You cannot. How do you capture a moment? Okay, with your iPhone, Kodak, right? That's the motto for Kodak. What is it? What is the motto? Kodak moment or something. You capture your life moments with that. You should know that, Ali. Or Chandan should know that also. Yeah, it's something like a Kodak moment. So that moment in time that we can try to capture, but although we can go back in time in our mind in one sense and relive that moment, but at the same time you can't really capture that at all. It's gone forever. It is no longer existent. So time is categorized in one sense by that which is continually existing and non-existing. It comes into existence and goes out of existence at every moment. So it is uncapturable. It can not be understood almost. Practically cannot be understood. How can you explain all the intricacies of time? You could write volumes and volumes and volumes of books upon time, and still you wouldn't be able to understand it completely. Just like we have people, within science it's understood there is only a handful of people in the whole world that understand the nature of gravity, or have a closer understanding of nature of gravity. Even then they still don't understand, because they don't understand ultimately it's sankarshan that's in control. But you can see how different material elements, or the manifestations of material nature, are very intricate. Yeah, and it's hard to actually understand. So modern science tries to simplify it in some way by designating chemical compounds or them as chemical elements, just like hydrogen is one proton, one electron, and trying to devise elements like that. When we think about elements, generally we don't think about it from the perspective of bhūmirapo nalo vayu kamano buddhir evacha, especially kamano buddhir evacha, the mind, intelligence, false ego. We never think about that in science, particularly growing up in chemistry and physics. We think of it as hydrogen, nitrogen, boron, all of these different elements. I almost forgot some of them, or most of them. How many elements are there? 118. 118 elements, and more to be discovered, right? No, 118. Nima is in school right now, so they're continually discovering more elements. But actually, Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't. I think you're past your time. It's been a few years in school. So there's so many elements, and they're continually discovering more. They keep saying, but the Vedas don't particularly they divide the elements in that particular way. We see that 24 elements, 24 elements are being described. Those specific to the material elements: earth, water, air, fire, ether, and then the qualities of those elements: odor, taste, form, touch, sound, and then the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, which is the jnana indriyas: sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and then the senses of action: tongue, hand, legs, genitals, which are the karma indriyas, and then the mind, intelligence, false ego. And amongst all of that, within Sankhya philosophy, Kapila Dev defines, the 25th element, which is? It's also time. Time is specifically mentioned, time. So time is the factor which actually brings all of these other elements about, or puts them into motion. Because originally there is the pradhana, and that pradhana is the state in which all the undifferentiated, it's a sum of all the material elements, in which it is homogeneous, you could say, in one sense. And when that, when time influences there by the will of the Supreme Personality Godhead, by the glance of the Supreme Personality Godhead, then those undifferentiated material elements become differentiated, and their elements become manifested. So the three modes of material nature become apparent, as example given here, just as a cream comes to the top when we put milk to rest overnight. By further interactions of three modes, time and the total material energy, all material elements become apparent, just like we may separate milk into butter, cream, powder, milk, etc., and then create different preparations by mixing these different ingredients in different ways and in different portions. So the whole material nature comes about like this by the touch of time. So time being the supreme factor of everything. Every moving body is controlled by time. Every moving body is also measured by time. So without time, you can't really measure anything. Just in quantum mechanics, when we were studying that, there is a thing called in which you calculate, I think, relativity, or that you use a thing called Schrodinger's equation, and which is time-independent equation. When you cancel out by doing a bunch of derivatives, there's a time-independent, which because you're dealing with particles, even a particles depend on time, because you have to, when something moves, it can't move without the influence of time. As soon as you measure, it means there's some time influence involved. So there's no question of being time independent. And time being the Supreme Personality Godhead, actually all living entities are ultimately dependent on time. They're dependent on Krishna. Otherwise nothing can take place. Nothing can move, as we have the common saying, nothing can move without not even a blade of grass can move without the sanction of the Supreme Personality Godhead. So it's specifically seeing this for the atheist in through the vision of time, that nothing can move without the supreme will of time. Time is supreme. So it controls everything within this universe. It's specifically mentioning that time can control only those who are body conscious, even up to the Satyaloka or to the other higher planets of the universe. Interesting. And then we have that verse that comes initially in the second canto, Vayur Anilam Amritam. How does that start? Ayo Vai Harati Vaipumsam Udhan Astayan Asau, and then I don't know the rest of it. Yes. By the rising and the setting of the sun, the lives of the people at Mass are diminished. But for those who are absorbed in glorifying the Supreme Personality Godhead, then there's no influence of time upon them. So, and so many verses are there throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, that such personalities no longer become influenced by time. Why? Because we see here a very particular detail. Time can control only those who are bodily conscious. Very important point. Those who are bodily conscious of life, up to the form of Lord Brahmā, are controlled by time. But those who have realized their position, their eternal position in relationship with the Supreme Personality Godhead as the servant of Krishna, for them, there's no question of influence of time. There's no question of the rising and setting of the sun. What are they for these pure devotee? They're the exhibitions of the wondrous, the adbhuta rasa, the beautiful pastimes of the Lord going on in this material creation and destruction. They just see it as that, but they themselves are not distracted by it. They themselves are not affected by it, even though the material body, the external body, may still go through birth, death, old age, and disease, exhibit that symptom, but the pure devotee himself no longer identifies with it and is not influenced by it, is not bothered by it. So he no longer laments or hankers for such things. So these material elements are particularly influenced by time. They are brought about by time and they're destroyed by time. They manifest and they unmanifest within this universe. So, and it is very difficult to calculate all of the different systems. I was mentioning that in science, they generally calculate according to the elements, according to the proton and neutron, and then define, okay, hydrogen is like this, is like that. Different elements are composed of different atomic particles like this. But we particularly see a different characteristics, and that's due to the understanding that is there. There's different levels of existence, that the shape and the atomic structure that is there may not be of the same in different realms. Just like we're particularly in the bhūmandala. So then there's different grades. There's the Svargaloka, Narakaloka. So they may be different compositions of matter in different realms like that. So the science that is given there in the Srimad Bhagavatam is that more of a universal order in which it can be used in all different particular mandalas that are there. So, for example, because matter takes shape, it has these characteristics of fire, ether, water, smell, taste, sight, hearing. They can be described in all realities. But what scientists describe may only be particularly defined within this realm also. And then we are seeing also they define certain things. Okay, we have this is the element table. There's nothing more. And actually we found a new element. But with the the categorization of earth, water, air, fire, and all the elements like this, then everything is under those principles. So, Srila Prabhupada particularly mentions that the coverings of the universe are there like that each one is 10 times more thicker than the other one. So we have earth, water, air, fire, ether. So each one being 10 times thicker than the diameter of the universe. Do you know what the approximate scientific modern science's diameter of the universe is? 606 trillion miles? Sextillion miles. Whatever, trillion, 10 to the 18. That's huge. Here we're 4 billion, being described as 4 billion. Anyways, they don't know, they don't even know. They've only discovered a small portion of the ocean itself, that which is on this planet, what to speak of their calculation of the length and breadth of the universe. So such fools, we can understand, any simple-hearted man can understand these people are quite foolish because they can't even understand our own ocean that is on this planet, but then they're attempting to calculate the extent of the universe, how far it goes. But we see Srimad Bhagavatam defines it as being 4 billion, I believe here, diameter is 4 billion miles. And then there's the elements, the covering of the elements, which is 10 times 4 billion, and then times that by the order of another 10. So it's quite big, and that's only one universe. And Srila Prabhupada mentions here, those who can even calculate the coverings of each universe can't calculate the number of universes. So it is unimaginable, unfathomable, the creation of the Lord. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, Keshavatur Jagada Vichitra, your creation is very, it's very bewildering, it's very wonderful, very, you can't understand it. So we may get into all of the different details of such things, but simply we can understand it is inconceivable to a great extent to such living entities such as us. We can understand it to some extent, therefore Bhagavatam is given it, but a lot of it we cannot understand or conceive of or even comprehend, just like we read in later in the 8th canto or 9th canto, how there's different planets or different sections of the universe in which there's huge mangoes that fall, and then mangoes, and they fall and they form rivers of mango juice. So how can you understand that? How can you even conceive of that? Especially according to modern science. How can you even understand that? I don't know, because practically to their understanding there is nothing living outside of this earth right now. They have not even come across anything. So it's inconceivable to a great extent. And so, but we can understand that all of these things are possible because of the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as it is brought to here, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is therefore said to be original cause of all causes. Thus the spiritual abode of Vishnu is eternal without a doubt. It is also the abode of Mahavishnu, the origin of all manifestations. So that this is all, that īśvaro Parama Krishna, Sachit Ananda Vigraha, āṇḍakośo Govinda, sarva karana karanam, that he is the cause of all of these things. He is the cause of the time factor. He is the time factor. And he's not controlled by the time factor. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all of these things. What's interesting point here that Srila Prabhupada mentions is that the temporary manifestation that he's plenary portion of Lord Shri Krishna, and thus although he's not different from Krishna, his formal appearance in the material is an incarnation, as an incarnation is temporary. It's interesting that Mahavishnu is there. It's not particularly the eternal form of the Lord, but it's temporary manifest just for the sake of creation, for the sake of bringing about the whole material manifestation. But his formal, that it's just his formal appearance in this material, but his real form, there's many forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but his ultimate Ādir Govinda, he is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the beautiful form of the Lord, who primarily takes pleasure in just playing about in Vrindavan, amongst the cowherd boys and the gopis. What does that have to do with all of these things? How has Vidura brought it to Maitreya, who's speaking here, describes all of these things, which is seemingly completely unrelated to Krishna, who's just, what does he have to do with this, all of this? He's just sitting in Vrindavan and he's playing, having a good time. He doesn't have to think about all of the different intricacies of times. And we've discussed it and it's quite mind-bending. It is, but ultimately Krishna just wants to play in Vrindavan. All of these things are there for us to be able to understand that it is all the manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this material world, so that we can be convinced in many different ways that ultimately we have to see Krishna as the provider, Krishna as we are dependent on Krishna at every moment of our lives, whether we like it or not. That moment in itself is Krishna. So it is the amazing philosophy and science of the Srimad Bhagavatam that allows us to see Krishna in every aspect of our life. And it brings it to that, whether it's in, we see here within a chapter or within the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, how everything ultimately is in relationship to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his original form as Shyamasundar in Vrindavan. So many different nuances are there and descriptions are there. And one important point being that all of these different layers of the universes are described, in which the yogi, who is a practitioner of different yogas that may be there, he has to pass through all of these things, all of these tests, and not become attracted by different, whether the heavenly planets, and then get through the 10 coverings and such. But we see that we have a great opportunity for ourselves, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given this direct process of directly linking with Shyamasundar Krishna, and being able to see the form of Shyamasundar every day, as we specifically have here, Radha Shyamasundar, and being able to approach the spiritual world directly by chanting the holy name, Golokera Prema Dhan Harinama Sankirtan. That name has descended directly from Goloka, and there's no need to perform any other process. And just by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one is just immediately connected with Goloka. One is immediately connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When you look at this Goloka chart, which is next to the book room, downstairs next to flower room there, you'll see that so many of these descriptions are there of the mandalas and the different layers that are there, the causal ocean, Mahavishnu. But you'll see that the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, directly from Bhumandala, accessing directly to Vrindavan Dham. So we have that direct connection to the supreme abode of Krishna. We don't have to go any other route. So we can have direct darshan of Krishna through this holy name. We can see Krishna directly. And when you read in different works of the Acharyas and Srila Prabhupada's books, that to not be convinced of that particular fact is almost like being atheist. To not have complete conviction that simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord one can attain all perfection, one can overcome all difficulties and cross over this material ocean is atheistic, to not be completely convinced in that. So we should analyze, we should see, we should read the Srimad Bhagavatam with this perspective that ultimately everything, we can analyze this and that, as Srila Prabhupada particularly mentions in his desire, what he wanted of his disciples. He wanted them to be scholars, but not just scholars like the mundane scholars, that you actually practically apply in your life what you're reading and studying. So we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam only with the purpose of surrendering to Krishna, to seeing Krishna in every aspect of our life, no other purpose. So all of this information is there just to be able to discuss and glorify Krishna. And if we get stuck in the different nuances, saying, okay, well, modern science says like this, we say it like this, what about this, what about that, then we've lost the whole point of actually discussing such things. And then we become, some devotees that are there. They just discuss these things and weren't able to understand such things. And then they left Krishna consciousness completely. And in that Mood and Mission that is discussed to some extent of the scientific preaching Srila Prabhupada wanted. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that in certain places Srila Prabhupada didn't answer his questions. So, well, modern science says it like this, and we can see directly it's not like that. We just see that Bhagavatam is saying this, but we have direct perception, it's not like that at all. Srila Prabhupada, how do you understand? You accept, that's all. Who are you to try to, not give authority to the Srimad Bhagavatam or not accept the Srimad Bhagavatam? We just accept. We don't care. We don't care for what modern science says. We only attack them on one point. What is that point? Life comes from life, that's all. If you do not know such a thing, then you are a rascal, number one, and everything you say is useless. That's all. So Srila Prabhupada emphasized that even amongst different challenges from his own disciples or the scientist community, in which some things are so directly perceivable, you could say, and that it's not exactly what the Srimad Bhagavatam says, still we accept. Why? Because it is coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is inconceivable, it's not comprehensible perhaps to our own minds, which are defective in so many ways. So we can understand like that. So I'll end the class here. If there's any questions or comments, I've got 2 minutes left. Yes, Kalki Prabhu.
Let's see, maybe one quick thing. So I'll just read this. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Anyways, I guess it doesn't matter exactly where it's at. It's from Adi Leela. So Prabhupada in the purport says, although Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees in disciplic succession can defeat all kinds of learned scholars, scientists, and philosophers in arguments, thus establishing the supremacy of the personality of Godhead, the main business as preachers is to introduce Sankirtan everywhere. Simply to defeat scholars and philosophers is not the occupation of a preacher. Preachers must simultaneously introduce the Sankirtan movement, for that is the mission of the Chaitanya cult. So, anyways, I was just reading that because you're kind of talking a little bit about that at the end. But just to make it quick, is that there's definitely scope of defeating and establishing, the truth of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and what Krishna says. But the end result of it is kind of like you're saying, that people should like surrender to Krishna. And we see that in this chapter, how Maitreya ends this. He doesn't just give like a scientific like explanation of like the atom, but then he brings it to the conclusion that like Krishna is like supreme, and like always like that reference point is given like in the Bhagavatam.
Okay. Anything else real quick? You have 20 seconds. No. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay.